so happy to see all of you guys today. Welcome to another podcast of ours for the Freedom Maximizer strategies for building a business or a life that give you freedom. And again, my name is Phyllis. Everybody call me the Queen of Virtual Assistant. Ultimately, I just want to live a life with freedom of your choice. You can do what you want, when you want, with who you want. I have been so blessed to be able to invite my best friend Elke here to talk about freedom for you, right? I have been getting to know her, for the past 2 years. She just have this free spirit. Like she's always, laughing. She's always had this best energy and she's very direct with all her viewpoint. And a lot of time I just want to be her. I really see the word freedom when I talk to her. I just wanted to share all her wealth of knowledge together with you. So without further ado, I would like Elke to, obviously introduce herself so that way I don't screw it up. So Elke, welcome.
Thank you, Phyllis. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm from the middle of nowhere. I grew up in a tiny, tiny village in Bavaria. And I always knew, it's really weird because where I come from, no one ever moves there and no one ever moves away. So it's like things don't change a lot. But even when I was very young, I knew there was a big world out there. For some weird reason, I just knew there must be something really exciting out there. So I stayed in my village until I was 18 and then I moved to Munich, which is the second biggest city in Germany.
Wow.
So I moved from like 20 people, so we had 5 houses, and then I moved to Munich, and then I lived there for several years, and then I went to South America. Then I realized there's an even bigger world out there, and then I moved to London, and then to Paris.
Wow.
And then I ended up in Seattle. So, like I left Germany in 96, so 27 years later, I'm in Seattle.
I know, man. I want to know, how did you decide to move from London right to Seattle?
It's so funny when I moved to Seattle, and at the beginning when people asked me, it's like, oh, where were you before? And I was like, oh, Paris. And everyone goes like, oh, I'm sorry that you had to move from Paris to Seattle. And I was like, I'm so happy to be here. I was so desperate to leave Paris, which sounds really weird, but Paris is an amazing place. Paris is beautiful and incredible, and to go on vacation, but not to live. And before we had kids, there was the not so nice side of all the things that Paris and France has,
Yes.
but it was balanced with all the amazing things that Paris has. So we would go out all the time, we would go to the opera, we would go to see concerts all the time, go to all these nice bistros and do all the nice things. But then when you have kids, all the nice things were taken away, and then we were just left with all the things I really didn't like about Paris and France. After 7 years, I just said, you know what? I would move to Afghanistan if I had to, just to leave France. And luckily, we didn't have to move to Afghanistan. We moved to Seattle instead. So
that is beautiful. Yeah, I think it kind of reminded me about, like me used to live in Dallas downtown. And then after I have kids, I just moved into the suburb, right? The burb is just working so well for the kids. And the city is great. But for us, we have the freedom as an adult to do whatever we want.
I mean, now when I see people without kids and they complain that they're stressed and exhausted, I just think, it's a different level. You live in a different universe. You have not seen the universe of what it means to have a job and kids and a house, and it just never ends. So things change, and then we just adapt. I'm super happy that we ended up in Seattle. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have never met you. So,
I know. Yeah, definitely love Seattle. I mean, it's a beautiful place and beautiful people, culture. So, just like what I said, right? My show, I really want to focus on the word freedom, right? It's a big word. It's a small word, depending on how you live. I would say a life without freedom, because everything is all by responsibility, right? I'm responsible for my children, for my business, for my life, for my whatever. Everything is responsible for me. So I never really feel the word freedom. And between work and personal life, I always have to choose work, because work is much more responsible. It's a bigger responsibility than personal. Until now, after learning from Tony Robbins and learn about life, right, and getting older and wiser, I realized that I can actually have it all, right? I can have impact and income and still have time for my children and spend time with them. But, I want to ask you, what is freedom to you, seeing from different culture, and, and where you are right now?
That's a great question, especially the one about different cultures. That's one of the most fascinating things about living in different countries, is that it's so different everywhere, but everyone thinks that's it. Look somewhere else and it's very, very different. And then that's it. And it's like, and freedom is, for me, like from looking at the last 50 years of my life, like freedom has been one of the most important things. Before I had kids, it was literally the ability to drop everything if I choose to do so and just to completely change my life and do something else. And I think it's really interesting that you said for you it was, work was always more important, or kind of felt like it's the responsible thing to do
Yep.
in personal life. But it's really interesting. My mom is an amazing woman, and she grew up in an orphanage. She was born in 45, right after the war. And basically, she once told me, don't ever work too hard because no one's going to say thank you afterwards. So she was like, just make sure that you have fun. And my mom works really, really hard. But she just told me, make sure that you have a balance of do some fun stuff, do some work, do what you want to do. And my mom has always supported me. I had a job for life when I was 23, 22.
Wow.
I was at the police force. So I was a police officer.
Oh, wow.
In Germany, when you're a police officer, when you're 27, you can never lose your job unless you commit a crime. So it's like one of those things that you stay until you have a pension. And then, it's a safe job unless you get shot, in which case it's not safe. And when I was 23, I was like, I hate this. I don't want to do this. I just can't. I just can't do this for the rest of my life. So I quit, and I called my mom and I said, Mom, I quit. And she was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Yes, and I'm going to go to South America. And she was like, okay. She always believed in me, and she said, if you make this decision, you probably have a reason and you probably have thought about it, and I'm not questioning you. So maybe this whole idea of freedom, of being able to do what I want to do whenever I want to do, really comes from my mom. She's kind of being passed down to me. But then things really changed dramatically when I had kids, because then, I can't now drop everything and just change and do whatever I want to do. Because with a job, you can leave a job and you can get a new job. It doesn't really work with kids. My definition of freedom now is that I can do what I want to do within reason, but I decide. For me, it's all, I want to be the one that makes the decision, not anyone else. And if I decide to go to the spa, and I'm now next week, I'm going to go away for 4 days to work on my business, because I can't do it at home. When I pick my kids up from school, I have to make snacks and lunches and dinners. And I just said, I need to get away. So having the ability to just say, you know what, I'm going to be gone for 4 days. I'm going to work on the business. That's still a segmented part of freedom.
I love what you talk about, the culture. I didn't travel as many places, but from like the Asian culture, from different countries to come to the state, getting to know other people. I think you nail it. Every culture had that it. This is what freedom is. And then until you really get to know other different culture, all the possibility, then now you're like, oh, okay, this is what freedom for me. And I love what you said, it's like, as long as I am the one that make the decisions, that is my freedom. I don't know, all of you guys who are watching this, do you feel that freedom when she said it? Because I know once upon a time, my decision making is based on everybody else. I remember in 2008, when I go to Tony, I feel like I just woken up. I feel like I have never lived before, because every decision I make is, okay, this is going to be good for this person. This decision is going to be good for that person. I'm going to do this because I'm going to make this person happy. I never ever asked myself, what do I want and how do I want it to be done? Until then, I was like, wow, I think I just woken up after, I think at that time I was 37 years old. Not that I'm trying to, disclose my age. And that's when I was like, wow, I think I just woken up. And this is where I really started to live my life. And then ever since then, things just keep changing. I love the change. I love that I'm much more outspoken now, and I'm going to tell people no, right? Like I prefer not to go here. I want to do it this way. It's still a practicing round for me because once in a while, I'm still not used to speaking my truth. What do you do in business right now? Since, most of the people that listen or view our channel is business owners, right? People that just like you, like me, overachievers, super busy, right? So what do you do? And then tell us, how do you weave around, your business and personal life?
We teach kids social and emotional skills through play and movement. And we do that in person and online. And we do that because it's really important. Yes. And I don't know how it is, but I think it's even across the nation. In Seattle, it's a big buzzword. Every school has SEL. By what they say, has an emphasis on SEL, social and emotional learning. But we strongly believe that the way how it's done is suboptimal at best or counterproductive at worst. My older son, he had his first assignment in middle school. So middle school, 6th grader. He was 2 years ago, 12. He was 12. His first assignment was he had to go for a walk and look around him and then come back home and write a poem about what he saw. Now, this is a nice idea. There's nothing wrong with the idea. However, the average 12-year-old boy is not going to take it seriously. Yeah. So his cat pooping in the backyard. So he wrote a poem about that because he thought that was fun. And that's just not the way to teach social and emotional skills. Because again, for my son, and it's really funny because my son thinks, or both my sons think, that what they do at school with SEL, because they both have SEL at school, it's just, it's just stupid and a waste of time. They play video games instead. Like, okay. And when I told them, but that it's important. That's what we do. That's what we do at home. That's what we do.
Yeah.
And then they go like, yeah, but that's different. You do it different. It makes sense. I mean, that's
Yeah.
important. But what we do at school is not important. So it's the way how it's done in school is counterproductive. How, nevertheless, we all know that if you don't have the important social and emotional life skills, it doesn't matter how good you are at math. It doesn't matter how good you are in science. I mean, you're not going to be happy because you need those skills. You need to know how to control your emotions, and you need to know how to overcome obstacles, and you need to know how to deal with disappointment, and you need to know how to deal with losing, and you need to know how to deal with winning, because no one wants a shitty winner around. And you need to know how to deal with your siblings and with other people and how to build relationships. And we don't learn any of that stuff at school. So that's what we do. We always say that play and movement is how kids learn, but actually it's how mammals learn. And two dogs over there, they play and move all day long, and that's how they learn. And there's one dog who's enormous. Our dog is really, really big, and our coach dog is tiny. But our big dog learned how to bite. I mean, to mouth him without hurting him. So they use play and movement to know how to control, how to have bite control. So, and every mammal learns through play and movement, including adults, but we just think we are above that. But kids, it's definitely, that's how they want to do. That's how they learn.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So I know, this summer you have a lot of students, your summer camp, right? I know you're super busy. So how do you, find a balance between, work and personal?
It's a variety of things, and it's a learning process, and it's a journey. And sometimes I'm better and sometimes I'm not so good. So I think the first thing that I had to move away is this 9 to 5 thinking, because I think it's stupid and it's not necessary. So the Monday to Friday 9 to 5, because it just doesn't work for me. And then I get worked up because I think, oh my God, it's 3 o'clock and it's not 5 yet, so I should still be working, but I need to pick up my kids. So it becomes a nuisance. It becomes a stop working now to pick up my kids. So that's the first thing that I had to get rid of. And instead of, I'm extremely grateful that I'm in a position where I can stop working at 3. I can pick up my kids and I can bring them home, and I can spend some time with them, and I can talk to them and actually see that as a gift instead of as a nuisance. That was a big shift for me, which sounds very basic, but it actually took me a long time to get to that point of just being really grateful that I have the ability to do that. That's the first thing. The second thing is just being realistic. And that was really hard for my partner, my business and life partner, because whenever we had meetings, I was like, this should have been done yesterday, and it definitely has to be done by tomorrow. And he was like, what? So it was like this constant sense of urgency of it has to be done now, because otherwise you're going to go bankrupt. And it's just not true. I mean, this is hardly ever true. Most things, hardly anything needs to be done now. So this idea of, no, it's fine, set a realistic deadline. But then one of the things that was a big game changer for us is obviously working with you. Again, it was a learning process, but once I got there, it really made an enormous difference, because there was also a time when I thought, like so many business owners, it's like, well, no one can do it as well as I do it. So I'm the one that has to do it, everything, all the time.
Yes.
And it's just really stressful. And I remember when we hired Kylie, and I remember that I called you afterwards and was like, oh my God, what do you do to those kids that they're so amazing? And it was just really interesting to see that she knew all these things that I didn't know anything about. And not only do I not know anything about it, I also really don't want to know anything about it. I don't want to learn it. I don't want to learn stuff that I'm really not interested in. I guess maybe that's another thing. It's like this idea of that as a business owner, you have to know everything at all times. Not only that you have to do everything, you also have to know everything. I mean, now there are so many things that I don't know, because we then hired Mark. And I mean, Mark is incredible. I'm pretty actually sure he has a degree in computer science. We used him for things that were definitely below his education. And but when I realized, holy crap, I mean, Mark is so smart, and he can set up all this stuff in the back end. Because what I did at the beginning, when I worked with Mark and Kylie, I tried to come up with a solution, and then I tried to explain the solution to them.
Yes.
And then I hoped that they would execute it. Versus now, I tell them what the problem is. And I say, fix it, please fix it. And then they fix it, and then they come up with a solution, and then they tell me afterwards what they did. And I was like, great. And you know what? I don't actually have to know how it works. I mean, Mark did all these weird things at the back end where this talks to that, and then it goes into that spreadsheet, and it gets moved over to the other one, and then it goes to this thing. And I don't know it, and I don't understand it. And I told him, please write an SOP, make a video so that we know what it is, but I don't need to understand it. And that has given me back a lot of freedom, not only in terms of time, but also in terms of brain space, because it doesn't have to be in here anyway. That has been a big change for us.
I love it. I love it. I love what you actually mentioned, a couple of the distinction that, you brought up. One is, as a business owner, right, we don't have to know everything. I remember once upon a time, I'm exactly like that. I got to learn everything. And then when I learn it, then I have to teach my people how to do it. But then the problem is I'm really not liking the topic already. I am trying to digest it, and then I'm teaching to somebody else. And I was like, I'm not doing a good job. And I get frustrated. They get frustrated. And then I become the chokehold of the business because I was like, I really don't know about this, but I'm going to force myself to learn. And then I'm going to force myself to teach. And I'm going to force you to figure it out. And then now, by me removing myself from the equations, is like, I'm not good at it. I hire somebody that's really good. You go figure it out. As long as you can solve this problem, I don't need to know that, right? Then you take away at least, 5 or 10% of my brain cell, but most of the time because you don't like it. So you feel like it's 80% of your brain that is like, like stuffing with all these things that is unpleasant. And I think that definitely have given me a lot of freedom after I cracked that code. It's like, okay, I don't need to know a lot of things. And truth to be told, right now, sometimes kind of scary, but in my business, I really don't know a lot of how to do certain things and what's a password, certain things, but things get done, which ultimately for me, my definition of freedom is that, right? Is that I can have people that I can rely on. And ultimately, if I really, really want to go get it figured out, I could. Elke said, like the SOP, right? The passwords, I can really figure it out, but I don't want to. I really want to hire people and leveraging people. So in that way, I have the freedom. The craziest part about this piece too, is that if you are leveraging people, right? Whether it's virtual assistant or local employees, if they really know that you truly rely on them, they actually showed up very differently. But if you only just say, hey, I just want you to do this, do that, do this, do that, but they never really ever have the ownership of the role, they will never really care as much, because once upon a time, I'm like that too, right? I told you I'm a responsible person. And I remember like if somebody's relying on me because I am the only one that know how to do this thing, I wake up even if I'm sick. However, if I am like the second or the third person, it's okay. If I'm sick, somebody else is going to figure it out. I don't have to be there, right? So I would take it a lot likely and less loyal to it. And I think Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy have wrote this book, 10x is easier than 2x. And in one of the book, it actually really talks about this. He said that you need to really look for the irreplaceable person. It is a pretty interesting balance because the irreplaceable person will always help you scale your business 10x. However, because they're irreplaceable, so sometimes if you need to replace them, you'll feel the pain. So, it's kind of like take your own poison per se. But I really, really do like that. I personally right now, I have 7 irreplaceable person. I don't know what they do, but they do really well at what they do. Every time I have a problem, I just tell them and they just kind of solve it. And I love it. But again, I do have the freedom of allowing them to fail forward. And I think that's one freedom that a lot of business owner does not have. And that's something that, I want to be a big advocate about, because ultimately the reason why we know how to walk and then starting to run and potentially fly one day, right, is because we fail many, many times, right? We started to walk, we fall, we get out, we started to walk and we fall, we started to walk, we fall again. And in the end, we got the freedom of, walking, and then we'll be able to go to anywhere we want to. But, enough me, like rambling down my rabbit hole. What do you think is 1 or 2 tips that, you have on maximizing freedom? Or have you ever noticed like how you maximize freedom when you found out, okay, this is my freedom for me?
I think before you maximize it, you actually need to know what it means. Because I think it's like with many things, it's what we humans do a lot. Is like we are very good at knowing what we don't want. We know what it's not. But it's very hard to actually define this is what it is. And I think once you know exactly what it is, be very, very specific. Just not freedom is doing whatever I want, whenever I want, because that means nothing. Unless you literally can drop everything and run and go, that's exactly what it is. But if you are in a different stage of your life where you, like in my case, I have a business and I have kids. So if my definition of freedom was still, I can drop everything whenever I want and do whatever I want, then I would be really upset, because then I would have no freedom. I really had to get to a point, and I'm still working on it. And to me, right now, it's like this. If on a Friday at 6 p.m. I decide I want to go to the spa, then I can just do that. Every Friday, I'm free to make that decision. If I don't want to, then I don't have to. But if that's what I want to do, then I can do that. And it makes me so happy. Walking into that spa, and it's warm, and you can smell all the nice smells, and it's amazing. And it's a Korean spa. That is to me now freedom. Or it's like, I'm going to be 50 in 5 weeks. So I booked a hotel at the Four Seasons with my family. That's what makes me feel I have freedom. And it's very, very different to the freedom I had when I was 20. That's right now how I find freedom for myself.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love exactly like what the distinction it is for freedom. Just like what I always said, freedom is different from everybody, right? Some people, they want, really big house, big cars, right? Private jet, right? Some people, it's like, hey, as long as I'm on the beach, right? Our Airbnb, and be in a different town every week, that's freedom for me, and there's really no right answer. It's whatever it is for you, right? It is for you and your family.
As long as you're very specific, I think that's the most important thing. You need to know exactly what it is, because otherwise you will never have this feeling of success, because you don't really know what it is. So you don't know if you're there or not. If you don't have a destination, you don't know if you made it or not.
Yes. Just like what Elke say, maybe, after this podcast, sit down, have some really good music, write down what you don't want, what do you really want, and be very specific on this 1-2 things that that if you do it, you're going to feel the freedom, you're going to feel the peace of mind, right? Whatever feeling that you want to feel that, make you feel the freedom that you want. Elke, last 2 questions. One is, what is one of the best advice that, you have received or you can give to all the, viewer or the listener that we have on the call? Again, most of them are business owners, have children, working really hard and trying to, find their own freedom so that they can, really live the life that they truly want.
The first thing that comes to mind is the book Who Not How, but that's pretty much exactly what you've just been describing. It's like, don't think you have to do it all yourself. Find the people that know and like doing those things. I mean, I think that's almost the most surprising thing. The things that I'm really not good at and I really don't like, it's such a drag. Yep. And then you have someone that is good at it and likes it, and they get lit up and they're excited, and you just think, really? Oh my God, you are weird, but I'm really grateful you're here. Oh my God. That's definitely a big one. It's because there was a time, especially as moms, there was a time when I tried to only work when the kids weren't around. So I dropped the kids off at school and then I would work. And then when I picked up the kids, I completely stopped everything and was available for the kids 100%, which they often didn't even want in the first place. But then it also meant that my kids actually thought I didn't work. They thought, and then it was like, that was still when I was still married. So they thought, oh yeah, no, daddy is tired and stressed because he works, but mommy doesn't work. And I was like, are you serious? I think often as moms, we try to be available 100% all the time.
Yes.
And it really backfires. At least in my case, it did.
Yep.
And then, okay, we have to change that. So now I put time aside that's quality time with my boys. So we have snack time. When they come home from school, I make snacks, we all sit down and we talk, and there's no screen and nothing and no work. Even if it's just 15 minutes where we connect, that's oh my God, that fills me up no end. But then afterwards, I tell them, I actually have stuff to do and you have homework to do, so we can work next to each other. So I'm not hiding the fact anymore that I work, which then built some appreciation on their end, because it was like, oh, mom's working too.
I love it. I love it so much. There's people that's like, Phyllis, I don't think you work. I say, no, I do work. I might not work in front of you, but I do work. And last but not least is, I know that you have an amazing program for children. I wanted to highlight that piece because ultimately, as a mother, sometimes it's just really hard to find resources. And I love your YouTube channel to teach the kids how to, get active, right? And learn all these life skills. So can you tell us just a little bit more about, what you do? And if they want to get some parenting advice or how to get their kids better at this SCL thing that you mentioned, how can they, find you?
I love this, the SCL thing. We just revamped our YouTube channel and it's now super cool. So we worked with Lauren and Dan from Switzerland. They've done just the most amazing job. So that's one option. So we're on YouTube. And we also completely revamped our online program. So we worked actually with the Children's Therapy Center here in Washington State.
Wow.
To redo the content. And it's now more than ever based on developing social and emotional skills through games and movement and play and stuff that kids can do at home without the need of any equipment, without the need of parents being there and being present. I mean, obviously parents should be somewhere in the house, but they don't have to be in the room with the kids doing that stuff. It's an annual program. It's 4 modules. Every module is a quarter long and it's 6 lessons. And it's all about making responsible decisions, how to control and manage your emotions, how to overcome limiting beliefs, how to whatever, all those social and emotional skills. And we use games and play and movement to teach that. And the program is called Kong Empowered Kids, KEK. But that's going to launch in July 31st. So that's the date we have right just before my birthday, because I told Kurt I'm not going to launch it in August when it's my birthday. So we're going to launch it in July. We are super excited about it. So those are probably the 2 best options for people that are not in Seattle, is our YouTube channel and Kong Empowered Kids.
Awesome. And we definitely will drop the link down below. So in that way you can, sign up for it if you want to, because as a parent, I look into a lot of really good resources. And again, not really require a lot of my time, but a lot of, good, content coming out from it. I definitely will sign up. That's for sure, because I'm eager to get my kids. If I know what I know now, right, when I'm 10 years old, not that I'm overachieving, wouldn't it be such an amazing thing? Right? Wouldn't it be an amazing thing? I mean, my kids are 7 and 9. It's like, come on, you got to know this, right? I know it when I'm 40. If you know it when you're 10, the world will be different.
You get several decades more practice.
And again, thank you so much, Elke, for coming in and being a special guest. I definitely learned so much from you, all these amazing distinctions. And again, if you guys find really, a lot of good values and you wanted to share some comment, type it down below so that we can kind of see you, hear you, and feel you. And at the same time, we have other episodes is coming up, so make sure that, you click on the next episode and learn more about how you can, maximize your freedom. And ultimately, just like what Elke say, figure out what is the freedom that you want and then find a way to achieve it, because ultimately we only live once, and we want you to be able to maximize it however you want it. So thank you so much, and I look forward to see you at the next podcast. Bye-bye.